We continue now at the top of Daf Mem Gimel Amud Aleph in Meseches Pesachim. This is Pesachim Daf 43a. The Gemara here is continuing a statement from Rav, Shehigiu lepirkan velo higiu l'shanim. We're talking here about girls who they have reached the situation where they're mature in the physical sense. They have the saros, they have the hairs, but they aren't actually yet of age. So what they would do is, in order to remove the hair because they were embarrassed from it, so benos aniyim toflos osan besid. The daughters of the poor people, they used to use sid, they used to use plaster in order to remove the hair. Benos ashirim toflos osan besoles. The daughters of the wealthy would use flour, and benos malachim, the daughters of kings, beshemen hamor, they would use this kind of oil, which we'll discuss in a moment. So the point over here is that the benos ashirim used to use soles. That's the idea that this cosmetic over here was considered to be a mixture of chametz. Rashi over here says shehigiu lepirkan velo higiu l'shanim sheyesh len saros ki'ilu higiu lepirkan, means they have the saros as if they have reached the age, vehein lo higiu lechlal shanim, but they're not actually of age, uvoshas al kach, and they were embarrassed about this. Ashiros toflos osan besolos umeisheres asar. That's how they would remove the hair, and that's what the Mishnah is talking about when the Mishnah talks about a problem of chametz. So the Gemara now asks, first of all, it says b'shemen hamor shenemar, like the pasuk says, shisha chadashim b'shemen hamor. The women would spend 6 months with the shemen hamor. Now, my shemen hamor. What was shemen hamor? Rav Huna bar Yirmiyah Amar Sateches. Rav Huna bar Yirmiyah says it was Sateches. Rashi says we don't know exactly what that is. Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba Amar shemen zayis shelo hevi shlish. Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba says it was olive oil, and the olives had not reached a third of their maturation. Tanya, we learned in a brayso, Rav Yehuda Omer, Rav Yehuda says, an piknin shemen zayis shelo hevi shlish an piknin, which is again shemen zayis that hasn't reached a third. V'lo masachin also, and why did they anoint themselves with this? Mevnei shemeisher es asar u'ma'adon es habasar, because it removes the hair and it makes the person's skin look good. And the Gemara continues that the two dots zeh haklal, the Mishnah said this is the rule, kol shumi min dagon, anything from grain. Tanya, we learned in a brayso, Rabbi Yoshua says, if the end of the Mishnah basically says anything made of grain, hareza over b'Pesach is going to be a transgression on Pesach, lama manu chachamim eselu, why did the chachamim enumerate these specific items? There were specific items in the Mishnah which contained grain. Why bother? Just say anything with grain. So he answers, Kadeshei Ragil Vehenu Vishmosein. We want people that they should be accustomed to knowing what these things are and the names of them, so they'll be able to be careful on Pesach. Kihadahu Bar Ma'arava was like a particular person of the West. Ikla LeBavil, he went to Bavil. Hava Bisra Bahadei, and he had with him some meat. Amar Lahu Krivu Li Maskilta. He said, give me some of that dip. Shama de Ko'amri Krivu Le Kusach. He heard them saying, oh, give him the Kusach. Kavan de Shama Kusach Pirish. When he heard the name Kusach, he knew, like the Mishnah says, Kusach is one of the things that has grain within it, so he separated and he didn't have it because it was Pesach. Hare elu ba'azara. So then the Mishnah said all of these things get a warning. It's a lo saseh if you eat these kinds of chametz, but it's not kares. Again, these were not regular, normal chametz be'ein. Either we're talking here about chametz that's in some kind of a mixture, or we're talking about some kind of chametz that's not really edible. So these are just an azhara. So the Gemara now says, Man Tana, who is the Tana of our Mishnah? The chametz dagon gomor al yedei ta'arovis, who says that if you have chametz of real grain, but it's in a mixture, v'nuksha be'ene, or you have what's called chametz nuksha, which really means it's not edible. Belav, in all of those cases, you're going to have a lo saseh. And Rashi over here explains, Man tana de masnisin, the islay chametz dagon gomer shenesare b'min acher, ve'eno be'ein shenimoach. Let's say you have chametz, it's a kind of grain that gets mixed with something else, but you can't see it anymore. It's already melted into the mixture. Inami, or chametz nuksha rav isa be'ene. You have chametz that's nuksha, meaning it's bad, it's not fit to be eaten, and you could see it be'en, you see it right in front of you. Muzharan al achilaso belav. Who is this Tana that says in these cases it's an isser lav, it's a lo saseh? The katani masnisin kusach habavli, v'shecher hamadai, chametz dagan gomer. Those are cases, the kusach habavli, the shecher, those are cases of real chametz, ela shenesare b'davar acher, but they get mixed up with something else. Either in the case of the kusach, again, is the kind of a dip, shecher, a kind of a beer. But tachshitei nashim be'enehu, now tachshitei nashim, that you could see the chametz right in front of you. Avol nukshu, but that's considered chametz nuksha. De'eno roy lachil, it's not something you eat, it's a cosmetic. V'katani ba'azhara de over alein belav, and it says over here that it's an azhara. That's a lo saseh. So who is this Tana that says this? Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rav. Rabbi Meir, it is the Tana Rabbi Meir. The Tanya we learned in a brayso. Seyor Yisarif. When you have Seyor, which Rashi will explain exactly what Seyor is, but it is a kind of a chametz which maybe hasn't fully become leavened. So it says in the Brisa you got to burn it. V'nosno lekalbo. Then it says you can give it to a person can give it to his dog. Now that already is a bit of a contradiction. You're burning it because you can't get benefit. You're giving it to the dog means you could get benefit. V'ha'ochlo barboim. And then the Brisa ends that if you eat this stuff, then you're going to get 40 malchus. It's a lo sase. So the Gemara asks, Hagufa kasha. This internally is going to be inconsistent. It's difficult, this Brisa. Amrit seir yisarif. On the one hand, you say you got to burn it. Alma aser b'hana. That seems to imply it's aser b'hana. V'hadar tani v'nosnu lifnei kalbo. Then you say he gives it to his dog. Alma mutter b'hana. That sounds like it's mutter b'hana. So what's going on? So the Gemara answers, Hachikamer. Here's what the Brisa means. Seir yisaref, the Rebbe Meir, the Rebbe Meir, the Rebbe Yehuda, the Rebbe Yehuda. There's a different definition of Seir according to Rebbe Meir and Rebbe Yehuda. Again, Rashi will explain. But the point is, if you have Rebbe Meir's Seir, you got to burn it according to Rebbe Meir. And if you have Rebbe Yehuda's Seir, you got to burn it according to Rebbe Yehuda, meaning once it reaches this level, it's considered chametz, you can't get any hana. V'noz no lifnei kalbo to Rebbe Meir or Rebbe Yehuda. Now, if you have Rebbe Meir's Seir, according to Rebbe Yehuda, that's still fine to get benefit from. He can give it to his dog. Ve'ochlo barboim, and when it says if a person eats it, it's 40 lashes, asan l'Rebbe Meir. That goes back to Rebbe Meir's position, who says it is a problem of chametz. Rashi over here explains. Seir shalon is chametz, called sarcho. Seir is something which didn't completely leaven. Seir pligim masnisan. There's a machlokas in the Mishnah what exactly seir is, and just be aware, seir is not the same as seor. Seor is what's used. That's a leavening agent. That is not the same as seir over here. So seir over here, it says again, it's a machlokas in the Mishnah. Rabbi Meir kari seir. Rabbi Meir says it's called seir as shehechsifu ponov v'zeu tchilas chimutzo. Basically, it changes color, the beginning of the chametz process. Rabbi Yehuda have a seir shehischel lisadei kvar sitkin daken kekarne chagovim echad lekan v'echad lekan. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's not called seir until it starts to crack like the horns of locusts on each side. Avol shechsifu pana, but just the change in color, Rabbi Yehuda matzah. According to Rabbi Yehuda, that's not even seir, that's totally matzah. Rabbi Meir karne chagovim chametz gamur. According to Rabbi Meir, if it reaches the level of karne chagovim, meaning Rabbi Yehuda's level, it's chametz gamur. So that's exactly the machlokas over here. Rabbi Yehuda says that Rabbi Meir's seir is nothing, it's matzah still, and Rabbi Meir would say on the contrary, Rabbi Yehuda's seir is chametz gamur, and it's only called this shalon is chametz called sarcho. That's dafka in Rabbi Meir's case. And now Rashi explains the Brisa. Here's how you read the Brisa. Seir Yisaref the Asr Bahana. It says Seir's Asr Bahana. Seir de Rabbi Meir Hechsifu Panav Yisaref Rabbi Meir. Meaning if it reaches the level of Seir, changes color according to Rabbi Meir, it's got to be burned according to Rabbi Meir. But Seir de Rabbi Yehuda Yisaref Rabbi Yehuda. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, if it reaches his level, you got to burn it according to Rabbi Yehuda. Now the part which says you can give it to the dog, that's actually Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. V'aseyor de Rabbi Meir Koi. That's going on Rabbi Meir's seir, meaning according to Rabbi Yehuda, if it only reaches Rabbi Meir's level, he can feed it to the dog. V'ochlo barboim, and then when it says that if you eat it, you're going to get lashes, asan l'Rabbi Meir, that it goes back according to Rabbi Meir, kolomer l'Rabbi Meir, ha'ochlo l'seir zesh, Rabbi Yehuda mater b'hana, soveges arboim. According to Rabbi Meir, if you have his type of seir, Rabbi Meir's type of seir, which Rabbi Yehuda doesn't care about at all, but according to Rabbi Meir, it is a problem, you're going to get 40 malchus. And as the Gemara will say, Rashi here says already, Alma Shamina Leila Rabbi Meir. You see from Rabbi Meir, the Islay Chada Mehani Tarti. He holds at least one of these things. The Masnisin Dekamar Nuksha Be'ene Belav. Seyor is Chametz Nuksha. It's the same thing. Could go in Seyor de Nukshu Deino Roy Lachila. What is Seyor? It's Nuksha because he can't eat it. However, Hechmetz Ksas Velo Gomer because it's sort of Chametz but hasn't finished the process. Well, Hechmetz Isas Acheres Kisaor Nami Lo Chazi. It also hasn't reached the level where it's what we call Saor, which could leaven other types of dough. That could be a leavening agent. It hasn't reached that level either. And the way we're understanding over here is, in this version of the Gemara, is if nuksha is a lav, for sure, ta'arovis. For sure, if you have chametz in a mixture, that's for sure a lav. The kasavar Rav Yehuda yedei ta'arovis chamer mi nuksha bein. Rav Yehuda happens to hold ta'arovis is stricter than nuksha. V'hai lav de nuksha nafka le mikol machmetzes lo sochelu kol ribuihu kidel kamon. We're going to say later we learn out chametz nuksha nuksha from the extra word kol in the pasuk of kol machmetzes lo sochelu. So that's really, this is all Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav's answer, and that's what he's going to say, that you see, according to Rabbi Meir, that chametz nuksha is belav. That's what we say over here. Ason Rabbi Meir, shamina leila Rabbi Meir, the Gemara says, we see from Rabbi Meir, nuksha be'ene belav, that when it comes to chametz nuksha, you get a lo saseh. V'chol shekein chametz dagan gamar lidei tarovis. According to Rabbi Yehuda, in the name of Rav, so that's going to be a kol shekein. Certainly, if it's a mixture with chametz dagan gamar, for sure it's going to be a lav. Rav Nachman is going to say the other direction. Rav Nachman Amar Rabbi Eliezer here. Rav Nachman says, no, the Mishnah is Rabbi Eliezer. The Tanya we learned in a brayso, al chametz dagan gamur onish kares, al eruvo belav. If you have chametz dagan gamur, you get kares if you eat it. But if it's just a mixture, it's just a lo saseh. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer, that's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. The Chachamim say, al chametz dagan gamur onish kares. Chachamim say again, if it's chametz, regular chametz, you're going to get kares. Al eruvo below klum, but a mixture is nothing. V'shamina leila Rabbi Eliezer, damar chametz dagan gamar liyadei tarovis belav. So you see, according to Rabbi Eliezer, tarovis, a mixture, is a lo saseh. And in this version, v'chol shekein nuksha be'enei. According to Rav Nachman, certainly nuksha, because nuksha, according to Rav Nachman, is more chamor than tarovis. So it's really just a machlokas amorim, which is more chamor, tarovis or nuksha. Gemara says, Rav Nachman, my time will Rav Yehuda. Why doesn't Rav Nachman say like Rav Yehuda? Amar loch, because he says to you, Tilmad kan lo kamar Rabbi Meir hasam ela nuksha be'enei. Maybe Rabbi Meir is only strict by nuksha. Aval chametz dagan gamar lidei tarovis lo, but maybe chametz dagan gamar in a mixture, it would be more lenient. For Rav Yehuda, my time will Rav Nachman. Rav Yehuda, of course, is going to go the other way. Rav Yehuda, why doesn't he hold like Rav Nachman? Amar loch, he says to you, Ad kan lo kamar Rabbi Eliezer hasam ela chametz dagan gamar lidei tarovis. Maybe Rabbi Eliezer is only machmir if it's a mixture. Aval nuksha be'enei lo, but if it would be chametz nuksha, he wouldn't be machmir. Gemara lo amar, he wouldn't say it in such a case. Gemara says, Tanya kavase de Rav Yehuda. We have a brayso that follows Rav Yehuda's opinion. Kol machmetzes lo sochelu. The brayso says, if it says in the pasuk, you can't eat any chametz, l'rabos kusach habavli, v'sheich ramodai, v'chometz ha'adomi, v'zeisum ha'mitzri. Now these are all cases of tarovis. That's why it's Tanya kavase de Rav Yehuda. So this brayso says, all of these things are included in the pasuk, even if they are mixtures. Yachol yehei onish kares. I might think that you're going to get kares also. Talmud lomer ki kol ochel chametz v'nichras. So it says you have to eat real chametz. Al chametz dagan gamur onish kares. On real chametz that's be'ein, you're going to get kares. Ve'alei ruva belav. On a mixture, it's only going to be a lo saseh. Man shamad le damar alei ruva belav. Rabbi Eliezer. Who's the Tana that says you get a lo saseh for a mixture? It's Rabbi Eliezer. Ve'ilu nuksha be'enei lo kamar. And it's not true by chametz nuksha. He's only saying it by tarovis. Shma minon nuksha l'Rabbi Eliezer leslie. You see that according to Rabbi Eliezer, he does not hold of chametz nuksha getting a lav. It's only by tarovis. That's why it's a Tanya kivase de Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Eliezer, a ruvo belav minoli. Now, according to Rabbi Eliezer, where does he learn out that if it's a mixture, it's a lo saseh? Tichsiv, because the pasuk says, kol machmetzes lo sochelu. It says, kol machmetzes, that's the lo saseh, right? The lo saseh is any chametz is a lo saseh to eat it. But the Gemara doesn't understand the logic. Ihachi, if so, kares nami l'chayev. That same wording is used by kares. You should get kares for a mixture. Doksiv ki kol ochel machmetzes v'nichrasa, because it uses the same terminology. Machmetzes, you're going to get kares. So the Gemara says, no, hahumi boile l'chiratanya. That's used for the following brayso. Machmetzes sein li'elosh and chametz me'elof. I only know that it becomes chametz on its own if it leavens on its own. Machmas davar achar minayin. How do you know if there's some kind of agent that causes it to become chametz? How do you know you're chai for that? Talmud lomer kol machmetzes v'nichras. So that's from the pasuk of kol machmetzes v'nichras. In other words, what the Gemara is saying is machmetzes v'nichras. So yeah, there is an inclusion over there, but that's to include if it became leavened by some agent. Has nothing to do with a mixture. A mixture is just going to be a lo saseh. So the Gemara says, so 1 second. If you need an extra pasuk to include if it becomes chametz through an agent, maybe that's what's going on by the lav also. When it says kol machmetzes lo sochelu, maybe it's talking about if it becomes chametz through an agent. Elatayim with Rabbi Eliezer mikol. So the Gemara ends up saying, you're right. The real reason of Rabbi Eliezer is from the word kol. That's how he knows kol machmetzes lo sochelu, a lo saseh for a mixture. Gemara still doesn't like it. Hasam nami yaksiv kol. It says kol also when it talks about kares. So for that, the Gemara says, no, maybe that kol is for something else. Hahumi boile l'rabos as hanoshim. Maybe that's to include that even women can get kares for eating chametz on Pesach. Gemara says, really, you need a pasuk for that? Nashami de Rav Yudah Marav Nafka. Isn't women learnt out from the statement of Rav Yudah in the name of Rav? Tiyama Rav Yudah Marav, because Rav Yudah said in the name of Rav. V'chein taught the very Shmuel. Also, similarly, it was taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shmuel. Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Isha ki yasu mikol chatos Adam. It says, a man or a woman who do these sins, hishva hakasav isha li isha l'chalon shel Torah. There's a general rule: anytime you have punishments, the punishment of a man and a woman are equal. So therefore, we know anyways that if there's kares for a man eating chametz on Pesach, there's going to be kares for a woman eating chametz on Pesach. So what would we need kol for that anyway? It's an obvious rule. So to that, the Gemara says, itzrich, it is needed, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Mem Gimel Amud Beis.